Welcome back to the Mike and Matt Show. Michael, how are you, my man?
I'm good, man. How's it going?
Everything's going great. I am so excited today.
Everything's going almost great.
Why is it not going great?
Because there's there's sweatshirts behind my head.
Yeah, I thought we were going to just pretend like that wasn't happening.
You can't pretend like it's not happening. It's right there.
I know, but if you're listening, nobody knows about this.
Doesn't matter. Their eyes are automatically going to be drawn to the sweatshirts hanging.
Okay, I think what we should do is before we introduce our amazing guest, I think we should address the pink elephant in the room.
Or the gray and black one.
Is that our TV screen is having technical difficulties, and we cannot cast our Mike and Matt Show logo that you all know and love.
It's having an existential crisis.
So we just want to put it aside, and then we're going to get to why we are here today.
I mean, that's it. It's having a crisis, and it just didn't want to cooperate.
All right. Well, listen.
And now I'm going to replace it.
It
had one job in life, and its job was to have our thing on the screen, and it's not there now.
I think it's a sign, because sometimes you're going to be faced with adversity, and how do you handle adversity? And I think that's a great segue into our episode here today.
It can't handle adversity. It's what it is.
All right, Mike.
It can't, but we can.
Yeah.
Let's go.
My name is Matt Weber, and Michael, I want to introduce our special guest, Gabe DaSilva. Gabe is a good friend of mine. Gabe is also a real estate investor. I am so excited to have you on here today.
Good friend of Alpha.
A good friend of Alpha's.
Long before he was a friend of yours, he was a friend of Alpha.
I know,
right.
but this is a special episode because I've been wanting to get Gabe on for so long, and I wanted to make sure that we got him in before the end of our first year. We're wrapping up our first season of the Mike and Matt Show, and I am just excited to go into so much with you. Gabe, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am blessed and having a killer day, a killer week, and I'm excited to dig in with you guys.
Awesome. Now, Gabe you've done some incredible things, and just to let the audience know, give them some context, because I always believe that that's super important. You started in real estate 7 years ago, correct?
Yeah, just a little over 7 years.
So like seven. All right. In that time, what you have accomplished is incredible, and I think it speaks volumes to you as a person. What you're able to do, the systems that you have in place, the people around you.
Run down the list.
Yeah, well, so
hit the list.
So Gabe
You're going to talk about it, but we need to spend 20 minutes so we can get through all the things.
Yeah, so Gabe is the founder and president of the DaSilva Group. He's a serial entrepreneur. Primarily, you're focused in real estate. You've won tons of awards, most notably the National Association of Home Builders, the Metropolitan chapter. You were awarded the best home renovation, best kitchen, best bathroom. We've done numerous deals with you at Alpha Funding. You have coaching groups, a mastermind, a podcast. You've put out a book. Like, you've done a lot. And
list them out. What do we got here?
So Gabe has a book. I don't know if you've seen it. If anyone has not read it yet, he has a book called
You weren't going to plug
Tips.
the book?
I was going to do it as we go.
Were you going to skip You plugged the book in the beginning.
All right. Well, Gabe is the
Plug
author of the Flip Tips, which is, and could you just share with the audience, what is the Flip Tips?
Yeah, so the Flip Tips is a way for me to aggregate the first 3 years of mistakes I made in the fix and flip game into something that can serve others. And so I documented my journey early on, and all the things I did wrong are captured in this book, the Flip Tips book, which everybody can go and get a free download of at fliptips.com.
Fliptips.com. Also, if you go to GabeDaSilva.com, all of the things that we're about to talk about, you can also find there as well. You started off with the Real Estate Riches Mastermind, which is a collective for real estate investors and people like yourself, like-minded, aspirational people that want to work and have a great community around them and grow. And then also you have your Out of Level Accelerator program, which is, we recently spoke at the Out of Level Intensive, and it's an incredible group. So aside from what you've done personally, what you've done with your community, I think also speaks volumes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a really humbling journey, and to be able to do this stuff and see some success, but then also be able to transfer that success to others has been really rewarding.
I mean, the book is great. My wife stole it from me because I had a physical copy of it. She stole it from me, and after she got done reading it, she goes, "I now understand why you complain."
Yeah.
She was able to contextualize. It was easy. It was really great. It was really easy for her to digest. And she's like, when she hears me on the phone with Matt complaining about 1 3 million, she's like, I get it. I get all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I now understand all the things you complain about on a daily basis. So, but it's awesome because I thought for her, for somebody who has only been adjacent to what I do for 8 years and not, trying to sit down and try to explain it, but she read through the whole book, loved it.
Man,
So
that's good.
it's
That's
good stuff.
So when you first started in real estate, which is 7 years ago, what were you doing before that? Because I'm always curious to see, how did people get into real estate? What was the reason that they got into real estate? So what were you doing before that?
In a past life, I was an entrepreneur in the food service space. So I had a fast casual restaurant, and I did that for 4 years before selling internally to my partner and then transitioning over to real estate, bringing over a lot of those learnings, which I'm sure we'll talk about today. But I've been an entrepreneur now for a little over 10 years. And before that, I had a 10-year run in corporate doing finance, different types of finance. But that's essentially my origin story, the short version.
Okay. Corporate versus being an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like about being an entrepreneur versus the corporate lifestyle? Because you obviously made that jump.
So I like that my success is solely dependent on me and my team and what we do, not an organization over which I have no control. In the corporate setting, in the finance jobs I did have, I had very little, if any, control. And so now within my business, like, I'm as successful as I choose to be. If I want a raise, I give myself one by going out and generating more revenue. And so that's what I especially love about the world of entrepreneurship. It's you and your team and how hard you can go and what you can build and create.
I love talking about origin stories, and that what you just said there is really kind of hits in lots of places. And I've known you a long time. I know you when you started. The question we often, Matt asked a question that I think we ask a lot of people is like, how, that transition, you went from one world to another world. I think the question that we haven't really asked on the podcast or to anybody recently is talk about that fear. I think everybody talks about that excitement, like, they're going to go out, they're going to do it. And as soon as the mics come off and we all talk about it afterwards, we're all like, yeah, I decided I was going to leave my corporate job and I was going to go do this thing and I was going to go be my own boss. And I was terrified. I was like, why didn't you say any of that when we were talking? I was like, I don't want to tell people I was terrified of wanting to do it. Do you find that, was there that fear for you? That moment where you're like, I'm going to change everything about what I do, right? And most people listening to this in general, like, I think they all want to make that transition. Most people out in the world never make this transition. Mm-hmm. Was there fear for you? Was there that moment where you go, I want to do something different and it's really scary, but I'm going to do it anyways? And what part of that journey was like, I'm going to do it. This is terrifying, but I'm still going to do it. Because I think people get to, I want to do it. I'm scared. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. So everybody's scared. Like, that's the reality. Like, the unknown, uncertainty breeds fear. And then you just have to push beyond that if the thing you desire on the other side is big enough. For me, the fear was that I wasn't living up to my potential, and in a corporate setting, I never would be able to. I had a handful of things happen over the course of like a year or so that were making that picture very clear. Like, I had a grandfather fall ill, and I had to ask for permission to fly to Portugal to possibly see him for the last time. And I remember thinking, why should I have to ask someone if I can go see him? And so, like, there was this internal pressure and fear building that if I didn't do something, I might be stuck in this setting indefinitely, and I might forever have to ask that question. I rushed to the office one day and was trying to make it to my cubicle on time and darted out across the street and was nearly hit by a bus, and someone pulled me back onto the curb. And I was thinking, like, in that moment, you're in shock. And then I walked the rest of the way to the office thinking, like, I almost just got clipped by a bus trying to rush here. Like, if I had been hit by a bus, a week from now, there'd be a new ass in this seat. They'd mourn me for a week and then they'd replace me. And so all these things are happening. And the fear was that, like, hey, if you don't do something about this now, like, nothing changes if nothing changes. And you may find yourself in this same position 15 years from now, stewing in this same cube, doing mindless, like, Excel work. And so for me, that's how I view it. I know it's a little bit different than the direction you were going, but
it's okay because everyone's journey is a little different. It's just, it's those moments because, like, there always has to be something that gets you from one place to the next and that keeps you in that place, right? Like how many, and it's a question we don't ask enough of people, is that vulnerable moment of like, I got to do something different with my life, but not just do it different, but I got to stick with it. What you're saying, I think, is interesting. It's that I think your fear was that almost that fear of mediocrity. Like, I'm just going to sit in this cubicle for the rest of my life. And what am I supposed to do with it next?
But also what you were saying, Gabe, and I think a lot of us, we struggle with this, is having an identity. So what a lot of people, like, they go through their lives, they have that monotony. You were just saying, like, if you were hit by the car, a week later, they'd have somebody else in that spot. What am I doing? Like, what is my identity? And being an entrepreneur, I think that allows you to kind of figure out who am I? What do I want to be? What's my identity? What's my purpose, my mission, my vision? And for you, I know you have a very clear picture of that, which I love, and it inspires me. When did all that stuff come? When did that start to crystallize?
After the transition happens and you start to realize, like, the game of entrepreneurship it's like a personal development exercise with an uncapped, like, upside. The better you get, the more you evolve as an entrepreneur, the more you make, the more freedom you're afforded. So it took time, and I made for a real shitty entrepreneur early on, like most do, but I stayed the course, and I had this realization, like, back to what Mike was saying, is like, my worst day as an entrepreneur is infinitely better than my best day in corporate. And so I'm going to stay the course here. I will never go back. And so long as growth is one of your, like, basic human needs, if you're built for growth, then you will thrive as an entrepreneur. You will definitely get kicked in the teeth many times, but you will thrive overall because you'll keep pushing forward if you're built for it. Again, back to what Mike was saying, like, maybe not everybody is, and they have to have that realization. They have to get real with themselves.
So you went from corporate to being an entrepreneur. So you went to a food service, and then you went to real estate. Yeah. Take us on that zigzag of a journey.
Yeah. That
like what's that inspiration? I'm going to leave my corporate job. I'm going to go here. And then, what's that journey from? No, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody wants to, at the end of the day, they listen to this podcast. They want to go, how did he get to real estate? And then we're going to ask you, like, how did we get from real estate to today, where you're getting awards, you wrote a book, you have a mastermind, you do the intensives, I've seen the bus tours, like, the journey is incredible. And I think, I find origin stories to be my favorite. Even when I watch movies, I love seeing the beginnings. Like, how did you do it? So, like, what was that, right? Because, I think a lot of these people are making a jump, and maybe they made the jump already. There's somewhere else they don't like it. Yeah. What was that moment? You went from corporate finance to food service. What took you there? Something had to reel you in somewhere.
It was a partner, for one, right? Like, it was his idea. He brought it to me, and then we joined forces and did it. We thought food, like real estate, is a basic essential human need. We're going to serve them. Food, for one thing, though, the consumer is very fickle. That was a learning of ours. I had a lot of learnings. I think that very few decisions are irreversible. And so I don't regret the 4 years I spent in food service. In fact, I thrive now as a result of the things I learned, the really hard lessons I learned there. And so it was just an off-ramp. And I took it, learned a ton, got back on the freeway, and here we are back in real estate, where, come to find out later, I'm sure we'll get there, is where I should have been the whole time, because that's where my passions lie. I like food. I didn't love doing food. I love real estate. I love the business of real estate.
So did you ever have that fire, like when you were running your restaurant, you owned it? Was that something that lit you up inside? You're saying, was it only real estate? Was real estate the first time that has happened?
The building of the restaurant, I was also younger, so I was a young person, right? I was 26, 7, 8, like full of piss and vinegar. I wanted to grind, and food service affords you the ability to grind. And so you can do 16-hour days and feel like you're doing things, but in the end realize, I didn't actually do anything that moved the needle here. So I guess what I was passionate about then was building something. Okay. What I'm passionate about now is impact. Like, I want to do a thing that creates impact and has a ripple effect. And so even the deals we do, we make sure that they're impactful. Slinging burgers for 16 hours a day, like that, there's no honor in that. Like in the moment, I was confused and believed that there was, but like there's few things worse than doing well, which should not be done at all. And I shouldn't have been doing that at all.
But I love how you said that, how it was rewarding. You were passionate about it. Anything you do, I know you put all of your effort into everything you do. But the fact that you didn't have an impact, like maybe having, people really enjoy coming to your place of business, eating, relationships. But what I love now is that now you, and we try and do it also at Alpha, is having an impact on people's lives and your shift. And it's not about me. I love when I hear that. Yeah. Whoever said it's not about me, they're absolutely true. And your life, it will shift when you realize it's not about you. It's about the impact you have on others and the things you can do and being a giver. And that's what I love about what you're doing now. So when you got into real estate, what was that? How did you get into it? Like, what was it?
You said you ended with a partner and then you started this. And I know a little bit. I have like a piece of sand of the beginning of it, but tell us how, what was that moment where you're like, this is it, I'm done. Real estate's the future.
So the transition was a little bit clunky, and I took some time. I know that's something I appreciate that I did do that most don't do, is like I actually sat with what I had learned as I exited the restaurant. And I'm not saying I had a big exit. So for those listening thinking, oh, that must have been great for you because you had this big exit and you were sitting on a lot of cash and you had the freedom to think. Like, no, I actually left with very little. But I did carve out time to get aware and to be thinking about what I wanted it like to look like going forward, as opposed to just getting into the next thing, right? Like think about people who jump from job to job and don't even take like a 2-week break, right? Like that's an entire career spent just like going through the motions. And so I didn't want to do that. So I spent some time really thinking about what it would look like going forward, and had friends who were already successfully investing in real estate, and had someone invite me to a networking event, and I just immersed myself in it. I started going to networking events. I started getting around real estate investors. And I said, oh, if this is something I actually want to do, which I wasn't sure I did, but I thought I might, like the best way is to get immersed. And so I did, and I started going to networking events, and it evolved from there. And each time I'd go to an event, I would try and have done something different, be bringing something different to the meeting. I didn't want to be the guy that showed up and had the same introduction and said the same things and hadn't done anything. Like I wanted to be a real estate investor by virtue of the fact that I was doing stuff. And so I got my license and I started looking at deals. I started walking properties. I started writing offers. And it's been an evolution from there.
I'm sorry. How long ago was your very first real estate deal after you left food?
6 months. It took me 6 months to get into my first deal.
No, how long ago from today?
Oh, 7.5 years.
7.5 years ago. So from today, 7.5 years ago, you did your very first real estate transaction.
Yeah. Yep.
What I love is that you were talking about how you would go to these real estate networking events and you were building in accountability for yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, people don't do that because there's people that go to these real estate events. They sit down, they get the food, they talk to people, they leave, they go the next month, they show up, they do the same thing. Yeah. Nothing changes, and they just go in circles. You actually used it as an accountability partner for yourself. You went every single month, and you're like, I don't want to show up to the next event without being able to share something new. And I think that's incredible because I think a lot of people, it's like social media. People use it on social media all the time. What they'll do is they'll post their journey, whether it's a fitness journey, spiritual journey, a professional, personal, and they put it out there because they know that if I continue to put this out there and I don't actually do what I'm saying I'm going to do, well, then all of a sudden now you look like the person that just says stuff and doesn't do it. And you're somebody who, your word is very important to you. You do what you say what you do.
I think that for me, if the video didn't match the audio, I'd have felt inauthentic, and to show up to these meetings each month and just pretend, because that's what a lot of folks are doing. They're showing up to the meeting, and by virtue of the meeting and just showing up and eating the food and listening to the presentation, they think they're investors. Like, no, you're not an investor unless you're actively investing, right? Or I shouldn't say that. You can be a passive investor. That's not what we're talking about. But like, are you active? Are you writing offers? Are you modeling deals? If you're not taking action and you're just showing up at meetings, you might as well be at home with your kids. Like, frankly, what are you doing?
And so with your group, so you have the Real Estate Riches Mastermind, you have your accelerator group. What are some tips that you tell if you're a newer investor, you're going to be just getting started, things that you tell your coach, your students in your group? What do you tell them?
Huge. I end every coaching call with our accelerator students with, if you're not modeling deals, you're not writing offers, you're not buying houses. So I need to know you're modeling deals, because if you're not modeling deals, the rest isn't happening. And so if you're not calling me, if I'm not seeing a deal model out of you, if you're not coming to the call with deals, then I know you're not taking action. So be modeling deals, be writing offers, and inevitably you will be buying houses. That's just how it works.
Boom.
So I have a question, and I'm playing on a little thing here. I'm listening to you talk about time. I think time is really important. So you started off, you 6 months from when you started, you got your first deal done. A question I want to ask, and it's going to hopefully this will all make sense when I'm done. The question I want to ask you is, you went to all these meetings. Was there something that you took away from them in the beginning that you felt was the biggest negative? Like, is it the get rich fast? Is it this isn't hard? Like, was there in any of these things when you were listening to people, and I don't want you to disclose where you heard it, if there was something, but was there anything that you took away right in the beginning where you're like, man, that was a huge lie? And I think that's important, because I think a lot of people, you're just talking about how in your group you want them to take action. You know the steps, but like, that's a lot of things, right? And I think I find it really interesting, and for people to hear this, and like I said, this is going to come back to time in a hopefully in a minute, about starting off in this moment, and what are your reasons for starting? Did somebody get caught did they hear a line and they're like, that's it. That's it. I'm quitting my W-2 tomorrow, and I'm starting. And in next week, I'm going to have a Lamborghini, and it's going to be great. And so was there anything in the beginning of this transition where you're like, you locked on to something that just was absolutely untrue?
I think one distinction I made early on, back to like the video didn't match the audio statement I made, is there were a lot of people that were trying to fake it till they made it. And there's a distinction between fake it till you make it and act as if. And so if you're showing up at meetings and you guys will know, like, your gut will tell you when someone's just faking it. I felt like there was a lot of that in the room. And I think that's just human nature. There's just a lot of that in a lot of rooms. But acting as if is having this internal belief that the thing you seek to achieve is going to happen. And time just has not yet caught up. So if you're modeling deals, writing offers, you will inevitably buy houses. But if you're not doing the first thing, then you're faking it. If you are doing the first thing, then you're acting as if. You're acting as if you're already an investor. I was bringing models to the meetings. I was modeling deals that I didn't own, deals that looked like something I would buy. And I was showing those to folks. And I was like, how do you think this model looks? If you were to find a deal like this, would you buy this? And I was aligning with the people in the room that did do that. You were one of them. And then I was showing those same documents to other people who couldn't be bothered because they were just there for the presentation and the food. So that's the biggest lie I think a lot of us tell ourselves, is like, well, if I just keep showing up here, something's going to happen. Like, nah, man, you got to do something, right? Like, you got to act.
Yeah, that is a great nugget right there. Fake it till you, because so many people also talk about that, because there is a little bit of truth in it. And what you're just saying is I guess the real part of it is ultimately, are you taking action? Because a lot of us, anytime you want to do something, you're going to have to be outside of your comfort zone. You're going to have to do something you've never done before, but you have to be it before you actually are it. But you also, at the end of the day, like what you just said, act as if. The distinction is taking these steps and the action.
It's the act part.
And I love that.
It's basically, you're faking it till you make it, but are you actually working on making it? Or all you're doing is just faking.
It's just the faking part.
Yeah.
So now this is why it comes back to time. And I love that the thing that you learned there was, if you just keep showing up, which
that's not the only.
I feel like that's every group. If you just keep coming back, one day it'll click. So here's why I wanted to bring it back to time. And I think that initial piece is really interesting, because I think, we spend a lot of time with newer investors. We spend a lot of time in these groups. We spend a lot of time going out. Alpha was built on us going out in the world and meeting people. And I love that that's the thing you said was the kind of the lie of the beginning. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because I want to say, you said a couple things, and I want to take us there, and then I kind of want to hear about your life as a real estate investor today. So you had a corporate job, you spent 4 years in food service. 6 months after you left, you got your first deal. Today, that was 7.5 years ago. And the thing I want to say about this is real estate, and I've said it before, is the ultimate equalizer. It's the one thing you don't necessarily have to know anything about before you do it to start doing it. But like anything else, it takes time, right? I think there's like a lot of our industry. I think when people look at it and they look at what we do specifically, because we do real estate, but we do like different real estate. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, whenever I try to explain to people what I do as alpha or who my clients are, I'm just like, I always have to explain to them. It's like, to those who have no idea, it's like, you watch those people on HGTV, I give them the money to do that. And they're like, oh my God, that must be great. And then they're like, but aren't you a loan shark? And isn't this, I'm like, what are you talking about? This is like, I don't know. It's like a whole thing. And I think they see it a lot as they've watched infomercials late at night and it's a get rich quick thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not. And I think that's something through the, we're coming in a year of our show here, of the Mike and Matt show. And I think the thing we've learned over that time, and of all the successful people we've had on the show, is time. There's a dedication to this, and there is no get rich quick. Just like you would have had to grind it out in your corporate job, you have to grind it out here. There's just more reward. It's more fulfilling. You're happier, right? But none of that takes away from the absolute, utter 100% devotion to making sure it works and knowing that it's not going to work tomorrow. It might not work next week. It only might work next year, or it only might work in 3 years. Like, because, and I think that's why I love these journeys, these origin stories. It's like, I like to show people that like everything takes time to do and to do right and to be successful at it. And nothing's overnight, and that there is an incredible amount you can get out of real estate. It's what you put into it. And what we just heard from you is a lot of what you put into it. Going to those meetings, being prepared. We talk a lot about, preparation and like having the right mentality when you go into things and, expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think your expectation was, I need to contribute to get something. And a lot of people are like, no, I just need to be here and someone will give me something into my life. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what you learned was not going to happen. Right.
People say they want deals, but they want easy deals. Right. When you're in these meetings and they want deals, no, they want easy deals. They don't want the deals they have to work for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Everyone wants the easy.
Of course they do.
Everyone wants everything easy. So when you got through your first deal, you've now really specialized. You've created a niche for yourself, which I think is incredible. And I think everyone, in whatever you do in life, you have to pick something, figure out what you really, really want to do, zero in, dial in on it, and just become the best. And you've become an expert. People call you Mr. Add a Level. Mm-hmm. So you've really specialized in some of your renovations. You really like working on taking dated capes, ranches, and adding a level to them. I think the whole concept of adding a level, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. So like, when you were going through your first deal, when did all of this happen where all of a sudden Gabe was like, I'm going to start doing add a levels? And kind of, if you could talk about kind of what your thought process was, what inspired you to do it, what do you like so much about it?
Yeah. So the first deal, like, is often the case, and Mikey talked about it, takes time. You got to grind. You get kicked in the teeth a lot. The first deal didn't go according to plan. And after dropping off day labor and letting them have their way with the house, at the end of a week, I realized, they've demoed way more house than I intended to demo here. Like, this cosmetic rehab has just turned into a gut right rehab. And so in doing so, and like having to right the ship, I realized, I'm actually creating value here. If I had done a cosmetic rehab, I would have made much less. And so this is a blessing. And so I worked my way through that project and was rewarded for having done what I did not intend to do, which was a gut reno. And I started thinking, well, what else can I do to force appreciation? Like, what if I go the next step up and add square footage as opposed to just doing value add and working within the existing 3-bed, 2-bath? What if I can turn this 3-2 into a 4-4? And so our second deal was an add level. We went right out of the gate and we went and bought a cape and blew the roof off of it. And were handsomely rewarded for doing so. And from then I never looked back. I just said, oh, well, this forced appreciation style model of fix and flip is more rewarding than traditional cosmetic fix and flip or the lipstick model. Not always, of course, there's those like exceptions to the rule where you can go in and lipstick something and make 100K. But with our model and forcing appreciation and adding square footage and ripping the roof off, you're baking in 100K on every deal. And once I had that realization, I'm like, this is my jam. This is where I want to focus. I want to go narrow and deep here, and I want to become the expert here. And that's what we've done.
Nice. How many add levels have you done? I know it's probably tough
Literally
to
wrote
just...
this down. I want stats.
Yeah.
Dozens. I don't know that we've done 100 yet, but we've done dozens.
Wow.
So just that, have you done, so how many, so is everything add levels or just the dozens add levels? What would you guess if you had to guess right now? How many deals have you done in 7.5 years?
60 something maybe, if I had to guess.
And the thing is, and I want people to understand, because how many people talk about how many deals they've done and they say, I've done 1,000 deals. When you're a wholesaler, that's not technically a deal. You might have assigned it. You're talking about
not to take anything away from wholesalers. They have a valuable purpose.
Yes, but I'm just talking about what Gabe has done. I want to give you your true appreciation, and you're taking some of these homes and these projects on average take 6 to 12 months. Mm-hmm. It could go sometimes longer than a year. Sometimes they're a little bit shorter than the 6-month period, but generally you're looking at almost a year to completely transform these homes. And you're, in most cases, you're doubling the square footage of the home. You're basically building a house on top of another house, and you've done 60 of them in 7.5 years.
So let's break that down, right? So if you take the first year away, because first year is not fair. So you've 6 years. That's 10 houses a year.
It's incredible.
The last time we counted, we were in the 40s. And so we haven't counted since, but we've started doing a lot of JVs alongside our students. So to credit the students for a lot of the projects recently, this is not me. This is a team, whether it was my team at DaSilva Homes or now my JVs alongside some of our students. That's how the numbers start to scale.
Okay. So this is, I would think, a very pivotal, important part of the conversation now is this has been going well for you. You've been killing it. Did you ever have a point where you had, like, I think all of us, we always have that turning point. Like, has there ever been an issue, like when you were doing all these add levels, I think you obviously, if you switch now, where now it's the abundance mentality, you team up with your students, you have your collective, all of that. Was there a point where things just weren't going as planned? Because we always know, like Mike and I, we've had our struggles. Things don't always go as planned. So was there ever a point in time where all of a sudden just things weren't going right? And what was it?
There's one losing sleep moment that I can remember, and it's when I got over my skis with debt service. It was the first time my monthly debt service crept over 25K. I wasn't built for that yet. And so when that happened, and everybody has a different risk appetite, I was scaling, I was growing fast, I was doing 8, 10, 12 deals, whatever it was. And so we're servicing a lot of debt. Some of it, a lot of it was with you. And so I crept over 25K, and I remember, oh, this is a number that I wasn't comfortable with at the time. And I lost a lot of sleep over it. We had a couple of big exits, and I've since gotten comfortable with that number and more. But at the time, that was it. That's like the one losing sleep moment I can remember throughout the 7.5 year journey.
Okay.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
I lose sleep every week.
And now you probably would take on more, probably even double that or triple that in debt service now.
We have probably double that right now. We probably have 25K a month with you right now.
Wow.
It's impressive. I mean, it is. I mean, it's a lot, but it's, this is what this is when you put the time in to scale a business and to do it and to commit yourself to it 100%. Like, this is what you get out of it, though. Just even the thought of it, right? Like, you have just $25,000 a month just with my company, right? You got to say to yourself, like, what kind of operation are you running that makes that work, right? And that's, to everybody listening, like, let's talk about effort. Like, that's the commitment. That's the effort it takes. Like, doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I think And I'm harping on this because for me personally, I recently listened, I talk to a lot of real estate investors every day. And I think I hear a lot of the I needed this tomorrow. I needed this yesterday. I needed to be successful already. And it's okay if it takes time. And it should. You probably should take time. I think if it goes too fast, something else is wrong that you haven't seen yet.
It might not be sustainable.
Yeah.
If it goes too fast, if it comes too fast, think every lottery winner. Like you've heard the stories. When the wealth finds you before you're ready, chances are it'll leave as quick as it came.
Well, I'm a big believer in faith, and I guess maybe this would be a good way to kind of change directions a little bit. Knowing and believing that there's a higher power. I know some people are religious, some people aren't. You're a big believer, right?
Yeah.
Christian.
Yes.
And knowing that you have that faith that when the things are meant to happen to you or for you, that they will show up. And understanding that if something isn't there right away, just to embrace it. And I think sometimes there's so many things. We have friction every day. There's things that are external that we have to deal with. We have internal things that we have to deal with every day. And finding that peace is so important because it is, like you said, Mike, it's crazy. It can derail most people. Yeah. Just look at how many people in the world are unhappy, how many people have to deal with daily struggles, whether it's, personal, family, professional.
But also I think this business itself, I think being an entrepreneur in general takes a lot of faith. It does, because look, you started, it was you, right? Or maybe you had I can't remember now. It's been I can't remember my breakfast, but maybe you had a partner, but now you're clearing $50,000 a month in debt service. You've done 60 plus transactions. It's not you anymore. How much staff do you have? Full-time staff?
So we do a lot of what we do. We're lean. We do a lot of what we do with a team of 3. It's a project manager, an office manager, and a marketing manager. That's our fix and flip operation. That's the same model I've used for years and I advocate using. We sub out everything else. And so there's a lot of guys that will bring a lot of that labor in-house, and I don't think that's necessary.
How many GCs do you rotate through?
On any given project, we'll have 20-something subs, but we rarely put one GC on a project. We'll self-manage. Our project manager will self-manage a rehab. If he or she is at capacity and we've got 6, 7, 8 projects on them, then we'll bring in a GC to run a project.
So if you're doing 10 deals a year, you have 20 plus subs, you have 3 people in your office. These people they're not working full-time for you. They're working full-time for you, right? And as an entrepreneur, this is where I think Matt's talking a little bit about faith and how you have to pull a lot of different pieces together especially when you get to scale. I think there's the faith in the beginning that when you're by yourself, and it's easy. I feel like that faith is almost a little easier because if you fall down, it's just you.
When it's just you, and when you are now responsible for a lot of
Gabe,
different
7.5 years ago, if you went broke, that first deal, if you went broke, you'd be okay. You'd be fine. It's just you. You figure it out. You're not going to go live under a bridge. I mean, I hope not, but I don't think you would have lived under a bridge. But now, if it goes really sideways, you have 3 people on your staff. You have 20 plus subs who know you're bringing a job every 3 months or whatever. That's a lot you have to put effort, and you have to have a lot of faith that you have some idea that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, there's some pressure there.
Right?
For sure.
But I think that's a little bit to what you're saying. It's not you anymore. And especially when it's not you anymore, you have to you really have to wake up every morning and feel confident, blessed, have that faith that everything you're doing is the way it's supposed to be.
And the rent is always due. And Gabe, you and I, we've really, really, I think, connected over the last couple of years because you've been on a spiritual fitness journey. And tell me more about why all of a sudden you got into this big kick. I know you've done a lot of different Ironmans, races. Why? Give me the whole story about it.
So the North Star is important, and faith and belief in something bigger than you. That's clearly a tenet. You got to build off of something. And if it's just you, you'll only go so far. But if you believe in something bigger and you're trying to create something bigger and more impact, that'll be your why. Those are good reasons. Those are big reasons. You need big reasons. sometimes sadly, like people's children aren't a big enough reason. It's not a big enough reason to take the risk and quit the job and go full time with entrepreneurship or real estate investing or cake baking or whatever it might be. And then I had a realization, like back to the point on fitness and this journey I've been on. I was like, oh, like what success I've had with very little discipline. And after doing a lot of reading and a lot of soul searching, I was like, what if I just ratcheted up the discipline? What was possible? What's really possible? And so that's been the differentiator for me, is like, I do that which I do not want to do when I do not want to do it, because I know it's what needs to be done. And that has been the game changer of all game changers.
What was the difference in the discipline? Because, I mean, you were very successful before this period where you decided, I'm going to now ratchet up my discipline. What were some of those things that you identified as areas for you to take to the next level and ratchet up, like you said?
Mm-hmm. So there was like, and to the outside eye, there wasn't much you'd see. But when I was alone, like, you got to be okay with yourself when you're by yourself. When I was by myself, I was like, oh, you're lying. Like, you're a liar. You're a liar about the thing you said you were going to do. You had no intention of doing that, but you said you would. You told the team you would. You told your mom you would. I had a challenge. I'm in recovery, right? So like, alcoholics and addicts are the best liars. We lie to ourselves. And like, if you can lie to yourself and get yourself to believe it, you can pretty much lie to anybody. And so I was telling a lot of little lies. And I said, let me see what happens if I don't do that. And if I just like keep to my word and I make commitments and honor them. And that discipline, like they say, discipline will bring you freedom. It's the ultimate truth. And discipline has been the big differentiator for me in the last, I'd say 3.5, 4 years, along with physical and all the things you listed, Ironman and all those things.
That's incredible. I mean, it is an incredible thing. And that self-realization, I think, is the heart. I don't know. I don't even know if I could have that much self-realization at this moment in my life.
Well, I think it takes something big for something like that to happen. And sometimes people don't
spiritual awakening is what they call it in the AA world. Like, something has to happen and if you're not a person of faith, you don't have to say and use the word God, because we do. You just have to believe you're not God. That's what they tell you. Like, as long as you can believe that you're not, which clearly you're not, because your life is quite unmanageable, then you can start from there. For me, I had a belief, to build upon. And I had that moment when I was like, oh, like there's more here for you, but you got to start being disciplined.
What was, and obviously, be as open as you want about it, the spiritual awakening. What was that spiritual awakening?
So they say it happens quickly. Like, it's like you have this realization that your life has become unmanageable, that you can no longer manage it, and that if you trust in a power greater than you, things can change. And so what they often say is step 1, 2, and 3 can happen instantly. And for me, they did. It was just this realization, like, it's become so unmanageable that you're drinking by yourself behind the bodega at 9 a.m. while everybody thinks you're on job sites. And because the jobs are going well, because the team is executing, you're able to hide. And so I had this realization, and I was like, oh, like, this is unmanageable. I can no longer manage it. And I'm going to put my faith in something bigger than me. And that's it. And from there, the rest takes a lot of work. You have to do an inventory, and you have to spend a lot of time digging deep. And you gotta let the light shine in there, and you just gotta be honest. Like Mikey said, the awareness. You gotta get real.
Character is what you do when no one is looking, and I've always loved that quote.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's that awareness. I'm going to go back to that, like to have that moment. I mean,
well, not many
bring all the words around.
I know. Well, there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to be that vulnerable. And that's where, like, I have always been so inspired by you, because it's not easy to be vulnerable. And most people, they hide behind whatever it is on social media, behind their families, whatever they're putting out there publicly to the world. And they're not willing to say, this is a problem. I can be better. I will be better. And you start actually taking those actions and those steps, like you said. And I think that's incredible. And it's amazing to see what's been going on the last couple of years with you. I mean, physically, like I've seen some of those transformation photos of you. Dude, I mean, I need to kind of tighten up some screws. And I've been working on that. You've actually, you inspired me about last year when I started to say, I'm going to be better. And instead of me saying it, and I love somebody, Brandon Turner from the Bigger Pockets podcast. He always said, he's like, be careful what you tell yourself. Because if you don't keep your word with yourself, you're basically, you're training your subconscious. Because if I keep saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then you don't, your subconscious becomes accustomed and conditioned to that. So now all of a sudden, if you don't do it, it's almost like, if you were going to say, I'm going to run this race, when you haven't done it 5, 6, 10 times, immediately your subconscious is immediately like, I'm done.
No,
you're not.
Lie.
Bye.
That's a lie. Yeah.
And then the power of when you actually do keep your word and you do continue to do the things you say you're doing, and your subconscious, it's like, it's this superpower. The
discipline muscle is
superpower.
Building like that. I mean, you and I have talked about this offline, more than once. It's you start to, it's a slippery slope, and you say you're going to do that. Example you just gave was me. Like I said, a decade ago, I was a liar. I said I'm going to run the New York Marathon. In that moment, I had no intention of running it. It just felt like a fun thing to say. 4 years ago, I ran it. 3 years ago, I ran it. So, in the moment when I said it a decade ago, I was clearly lying. But now I'm very careful with what I say. If I make a commitment to do something, you can bank on it. Like, I will do that thing, or I will die out there trying.
Yeah. And that's where with you, I have taken my word. I take so much weight, and, I'm very careful with what I say, because I know how powerful your word is, and character, your word, trust. There's so many different things, but with me, I started working with a personal trainer. Obviously now I need to tighten up my, my drinking, my food, the food that I'm eating, all that stuff, diet. But you were actually part of, the inspiration for me to kind of get back on my physical journey, because, working in Alpha, it's very easy to go off.
It's all your fault.
You live real.
It could be a slippery slope going out to the networking events.
I think it's easy. Everybody's watching right now. They're probably like, oh, it's this guy right here. He's the one corrupting him.
I corrupt him.
Absolutely not. This guy, he's just like,
let's go to Butcher Block for lunch.
Yeah.
Middle of the day, he's like, Mikey,
yeah,
you wanna go over here? And I'm like, I don't want to say no.
We could order a pizza.
Yeah.
We could go to the
It's all your fault.
steakhouse.
It's never me.
We could go get
Once
some
in a while,
sandwiches.
Last week it was me. I'll give you that one. Most of the time, it's 98% of the time it's you.
that words thing is like, it's really important. We could put like a period on it, and then move forward if you guys want. I just want people to realize, like, words are spells, right? Like, you're casting spells with your words. That's why it's called spelling, right? So be careful with the words you use and the things you say. Your kids are listening. Your subconscious is listening. And so I'm very, very careful. It's why I pause a lot. And even in this interview, I want to be very clear with the thing I'm saying and making sure that it's something I genuinely believe. And then if you make a mistake, and if you have a realization that you've said something that you didn't quite feel or believe, you can walk it back. That's like a big thing people are unwilling to do. Like, it's okay to say, hey, you know what? Let me just take that back. I didn't actually mean that way. And now that I've thought about it, here's actually what I meant. I've started to do that a lot too. That you rarely ever see. So and you're asking really good, thoughtful questions that are giving me time, and I'm pausing, and I'm trying to be very intentional with my word. And I hope that people are getting that, and that they're feeling encouraged to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's with everything. That's with business. That's with family. That's with relationships. Like, it's okay to say, I said something, and maybe it was the wrong thing, but I know it was. I think everybody wants to double down that everything they've ever said is the right thing, and they have to find a way to make sure it was the right thing. It's okay that it's not.
Yeah, that's our biases. That's our like inherent biases as humans. Like, oh, my identity is at risk if I walk that back. Like, no, actually, I think more of you. I think that you're a critical thinker. Like, I don't want to necessarily be around a lot of smart people. I want to be around a lot of clear and critical thinkers, people that ask good questions. And that's been a big change for me too. Like, as I guess we'll transition into these, the conversation around the mastermind is I'm getting around guys and girls that ask good questions, right? And they happen to also be 7 and 8 figure like entrepreneurs, but they're asking really good questions. That's what happens at the next level.
So that was exactly what I was going to get to. You were talking about being intentional, and I think part of that intentional, your actions, you now have tell me more about what was the impetus for the mastermind, the coaching program. You obviously are very intentional with what you do.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to do all this?
I knew I needed to surround myself with people that thought differently and at a higher level. And so since I couldn't find the group, I created the group. And that's what my Real Estate Riches Mastermind is. It's a collective of guys and girls that are doing business at a high level, but are also living at a high level. Faith, family, fitness, finances, and freedom. 5 buckets, that's what we talk all about. And we challenge one another to grow. And we do big deals together. And that's going on 4 years. And then our At a Level Accelerator, which is a coaching program that's more operational. It's about the fix and flip and the At a Level model that just celebrated a 2-year anniversary last week. So we've been running masterminds and programs, and I've been a part of masterminds and programs for a lot longer than that. But when it came time to find my crew, I just couldn't find them. So I said, let me create this. Let me be the lighthouse, and people will gravitate towards you so long as you're authentic and I try to be. I try and like curate this group. I take it very seriously. Like, not just anyone's invited into the fold. And that's been like a massive game changer for me at the next level. Like, I don't think, and for some listening to this, I don't want this to sound flippant, but I don't think making 6 figures is the same as making 7. Like, you can make 6, and if you just do more of what you did to make 6, you can make 7. When you make 7 figures, some things change to get to 8. It doesn't just like, do more of what you did to make 7 figures to make 8. The thinking has to change. You have to leverage, you have to be willing to leverage resources differently. You have to be willing to lead people and inspire people to do things that they're not ordinarily conditioned to do. It requires more of you. You can do 6 figures and just grind, but to do 7 and 8, you have to think different, and that's been a belief.
I was gonna say, do you think, because these are masterminds, these are groups that you started, do you think that part of that mental shift is that giving back part, right? Like, mm-hmm. in a sense, you started these groups, you're talking to these people, is that giving back, is that sharing in the knowledge and the wealth and what because now think of this like the At a Level intensive, right? You spent first part of your career doing this, that was, you're Mr. At a Level, right? Mm-hmm. Like, now you're sharing that with others, and now other people, you're training in a sense, and it's not necessarily true. So you're training in a sense your competition. Mm-hmm. But is there that moment where you go, yes, I am, but yes, by sharing with these people, that's the thing that takes me from 6 figures to 7 figures to 8 figures. That moment mm-hmm. where you go, even if I share what I know, through that, I will gain something that will allow me to go even bigger than I already am. I think everybody's always a little afraid to kind of let people into into whatever they feel they've conquered, like their little bubble of a thing, because they think, that's going to take away from me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an interesting question. Like, okay, so you have this group, and it obviously has not taken away from you in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. It's only added mm-hmm. to what you get to do. And that's something interesting. Do you tell me how you feel around that moment where you're like, sharing what I know and getting these people together isn't going to isolate myself or hurt for better purposes, people listening, hurt your pocketbook, because it's not. It's growing. Like, when was that moment of saying, hey, letting people in is a good thing? Mm-hmm. Letting people in, teaching them, showing them what I know, because somebody's going to give me something that I don't have at some point.
Because this is clearly, obviously, just classic abundance mentality. Were you always the abundance mentality, or is this just the next level of your mission, vision, and purpose?
I'm modeling what I saw work. Like, I've seen people be successful but not be abundant, and I've realized that their success is hollow, and they're pretty miserable as fathers and husbands. That's what I was noticing. And then I said, look at these successful people who are of the abundance mindset. Their buckets are all full: faith, family, fitness, finances, like freedom, right? They're traveling with their families. So I saw that and I said, I want to model that version. So I have to adopt this abundance mindset if I seek to achieve what they have. And so I started to give more freely of what I had. And that has, to Mikey's point, like, that has created so much more opportunity. Like, it's not competition, it's cooperation. Like, I'm doing JVs alongside my students as a direct result of having spent the time pouring into them, showing them the model, giving them access to the resources and the things that we've done and all the mistakes we made in the Flip Tips book. And it's continued to affirm what I already know and believe, which is abundance will get you further than scarcity. And so if you want what others have, then you'll have to do what they did. And so for me, that meant adopting the abundance mindset, because conditioning, I think, sadly, is a lot of scarcity. I think that's a lot of what society is doing to us, is like, if you're consuming a lot of media, you're likely being fed scarcity.
Well, it's digging moats, right? Like, the world's telling you have to dig a moat around whatever you do, and you can't let anybody in, because once somebody comes in, they're going to take what you have, right? And I think what you've shown, not what you're saying, it's more than what you said. You talk about being intentional. You said it and you did it. You're taking away the moat. You're like, no, I'm going to build a bridge over this, because there's more that's going to happen there than digging a moat around what you do. Because I think if you dug the moat, you'd be that 7-figure guy, right? And that's good. Like you said, that's fine. Yeah. But once you built that bridge, that's what's going to make you that 8-figure guy, because these people are coming in. Like, you know, you were saying you do a lot of these deals alongside your students, the JVs. Like, maybe you would only done 30 deals, not 60.
Yeah. And clearly you're a giver. And I value that. I appreciate that. You know, I've seen it even just out of real estate, right? You've done, you traveled to Guatemala, right? That whole, what was that? If you could quickly touch on that.
Yeah, we do. So we do a missions trip to Guatemala with our church. I've gone twice, and we build homes in the villages and in the dumps of Guatemala. Like, they, and I don't say that word like loosely. Like, they in Guatemala live essentially in like the garbage dump where the city's garbage goes, and their livelihood is made recycling things that go there. Well, those folks need housing, and we go in there and help them build housing. It's eye-opening, and it's been and for folks listening who are like, I can't like go to Guatemala for a week. Like, you don't have to, by the way. Like, there's a lot of things you can do to serve your community locally. We do that stuff too. But for me, like, there's a piece of my heart in Guatemala. Once you go there and you meet the people and you do some good there, there's definitely something to be said for traveling, and you get disconnected from the world. That's the other thing. Like, if you want to really deepen your connection to God and do some like really good work, get away from the noise, put the phone away. And in the mountains, in the dumps of Guatemala, there's no cell phone, there's no connectivity. So you can do nothing but like, connect with your higher power.
And we could keep going on and on and on.
Absolutely.
But the importance of also disconnecting, if we could touch on that, how important it is, because you make a point to do it.
Yes.
And sometimes I've tried to reach out to you, and you're like, I'm just not available, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, what? And you're like, no, the reason why is because you intentionally set these periods for you to reset or to recharge, and taking some of these breaks. Why are they so important to you?
Yeah.
You'll call me 4 times in 30 minutes.
Yeah. I call it like a think week, and I like to do it mid-year and at the end of the year. So call it June acceleration season, and then December separation season, and then carve out, everybody's life is different. You have kids, you have sports, you have all these commitments, but there's nobody that can't get away for 3 days. And you carve out however long you think you need and go off the grid. For me, that's been places like Florida or upstate New York, where the connectivity, I can turn the phone off, and I just spend a lot of time thinking about the things that really matter, and it helps me shape what the next 6 months will look like. So that's why I call it acceleration season around June, and then separation season in December, when most people are kind of like winding down in December. I'm finishing strong. I'm making sure I hit those like goals and commitments that I have for the year to set me on the proper trajectory for the new year ahead.
Beautiful.
I mean, I really hope my wife isn't listening to this. I really hope it. I hope it beyond hope. She's going to look at me and be like, see, you can turn it off. You can go away. Yeah. You don't have to think about what you do.
Damn Gabe DaSilva.
You have no idea what you've just done to me.
So open Pandora's box.
And not only did you open it, it all came out. Mm-hmm. That's it. I'm toast now. She's going to be like, I'm going to throw your phone in the river for 3 days.
As we start to begin to wrap up, what's next for Gabe DaSilva? What's next for you? Is there anything you want to share with our audience?
And also, do you see
upcoming?
things getting better, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the theme of 2023 podcast season is real estate will hopefully get better. Yeah. So what's next for you? And do you see it? Do you see an upward momentum? Do you see good things?
I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm always going to see it glass half full. The real estate market has been great to us. Like, we have the only inventory in some of the markets that we're building in, and we have projects. I'll quickly share, like our recent At a Level intensive that you guys came and spoke at. We visited 5 projects. One is pre-sold, 3 sold at 100 over ask, and the 5th one is going live at 500K over original projection. So these are the kinds of things that are happening. These are real numbers, right? Like, I'm not just flippantly throwing numbers out. These are 5 projects that my students and I are doing. And so the market is good. Like, there are deals to be had. Everybody wants easy deals. And when they can't find easy deals, they tap out. We find deals because we continue to act accordingly. So the market is good. The market will continue to be good, in my opinion. This is what I do for a living. So I'm not going to put my head in the sand, or I'm going to keep working. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be in this business and be in this business alongside you guys. I have you guys to thank. We just closed a deal alongside one of our students that you funded. I told you guys before we started, it's a $450K net. Like, we crushed. You guys were partly responsible for that. This is life-changing money for people. Yeah. So
you said that your student is now actually, he put in his notice and he's now going to make the full-time leap into real estate investing.
Yeah, well, that helped, right? That's a big number.
It helps a little bit.
Talk about the impact and just how powerful.
And he's not the only one. That is my mandate as a coach and mentor, is to see 50 people quit their jobs and go full time. I do that by transferring confidence in our model, but also protecting them and making sure that we're not doing bad deals. So that's holistically how I look at real estate coaching and mentoring. And I want to see people like have the freedoms that they get into the entrepreneurship to afford them in the first place.
So if somebody wants to connect with Gabe, with you, with your group, with your collective, how can they find you?
My website's the best place to start, GabeDaSilva.com. From there, you can navigate to all of our offerings and our free Facebook group, and the Flip Tips book, like we said earlier, is also linked there. And if you want to understand our model better, and we talked a little bit about it here, the forced appreciation, like fix and flip model, what we advocate for and teach, atalevelSecrets.com is a great place to also go. There's a webinar that I've recorded there. It's a masterclass essentially that kind of unpacks this model. If it sounds like something that's interesting to folks, I encourage them to go there, click through, watch it. And that's it. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, you have an incredible social media presence, so definitely follow on all of his socials. Make sure you follow him. And then also, if you're a newer investor, you also have your Fix and Flip Foundation course, which I think is, talk about foundation is a key word, a powerful word. Yeah. It's important to have a good foundation. And I think if we can get, as a new investor, the right foundation, it makes it a lot easier. And the main reason why most people don't continue with real estate is because they have a bad experience and they never continue. So also you have your Fix and Flip Foundation course as well.
On that very topic, so before we head out, everybody who's ever seen me talk at one of Gabe's events and knows what's about to happen. Gabe, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you very much for being on this podcast. There was a chance this never happened. There was a chance this never happened, and there's a reason why I'm telling Gabe thank you so much. I denied Gabe's first loan at Alpha. I'm very thankful that you've decided to not just come to the podcast, but you've decided to try borrowing with us again.
Amen.
But that's part of it. It's about foundations, about sometimes, at those moments getting picked up. But, I'm happy we were able to do it. But it's a funny story to say that, right? To look back and say, hey, here you are sitting at a table with us when 7.5 years ago they were saying no. And you were like, I'm going to make you say yes. You actually said that to me on the phone.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to make you say yes.
Wow.
And I did.
And I appreciate the opportunity, and it's been an awesome journey, and it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. That's the.
We appreciate we get to ride the journey with you.
Gabe, thank you for coming on today, and look forward to
catch us on all the places for podcasts. If you're listening to this audio only, check us out on YouTube if you want to watch the video. And you can see what we were talking about the sweatshirts above my head that may or may not follow me. But check us out on all the places. Hit the like button, hit the star button, whatever you're listening on that can give us feedback and positive anything so we can be seen by more people. Hit those buttons. I don't care what buttons they are.
Subscribe on YouTube, folks.
Hit all the buttons.
Yeah,
thumbs
YouTube,
up, stars, whatever.
YouTube, Alpha Funding page. We have all of our episodes, and then also on social media on Instagram at Mike and Matt Show.
So we have just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to have a few more podcasts for the year.
Yeah, we have two more. We have two more very special guests as well.
And then Matt and I are going to take a break for, was it 1 month or 2 months?
We're going to take about maybe a month or so, and then we're going to be launching.
I think we'll come back in
season 2.
February and March after the next couple episodes with, season 2 of the Mike and Matt Show. And I don't know what that's all going to be, but it's going to be season 2. But, listen to us everywhere podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's go, folks.
Hit all
Show
the
the
buttons.
love.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good one.